depending on exactly where you measure it, could be appreciably less than 100 feet. If vehicles are exiting that driveway, there's going to be a great deal of conflict with traffic trying to use the collector road. And additionally, someone wanted to exit the church from that driveway and use the collector road, you're asking them to make almost a U-turn movement, which is not desirable from a safety or operational perspective.
And what has been your suggestion for how you alleviate that concern?
My suggestion has been to provide a connection from the church directly to the collector road, consistent with some of what had been proposed as part of previous development plans for this site over the years.
Is that still your recommendation today?
That is still my recommendation.
Did you focus at all in your review on pedestrian circulation or pedestrian connectivity?
Yes.
And what were your comments with respect to pedestrian access and connectivity on the original plan set?
There were a couple key elements to that. Intersection of 926 and 202 with the retail uses at that location seems like it would be a reasonable destination for pedestrians from a residential development. So I suggested that access should be provided to that intersection to tie into the pedestrian improvements that are planned as part of the PennDOT improvement project. Additionally, asking for consideration of pedestrian connections to other existing facilities in the area, such as the trail and Arborview. Also, I believe the township planning documents, when looking at this site, the comprehensive plan and other documents, had suggested that there be a perimeter trail around this site if it were to be developed.
And does the alternate plan address some of those comments that you had on pedestrian connectivity?
The alternate plan is an improvement. It does provide a connection to 926 and 202. It gets close to connecting to the facilities within Orvis Way. I know there's some question about the applicant's ability to work with Arborview to get that done. I'll defer to the township planning consultants on the perimeter trail. I know there's been various discussions on whether what's being proposed serves that purpose.
I'm going to shift your attention to the testimony from the applicant's traffic consultant, Nicole Klein. Did you participate in the conditional use hearing that was conducted on August 31st, 2020, when Ms. Klein testified?
Yes.
And do you recall in her testimony that she testified that traffic calming measures were not necessary along West Pleasant Grove Road?
Yes.
Do you agree with that conclusion?
No.
And why not?
I don't believe that there was anything submitted in the materials by the applicant that would consist of a traffic calming study that would provide the basis of that conclusion. I would anticipate with the increased traffic along West Pleasant Grove Road, as well as the additional conflict points being added by the driveways and the collector road, that traffic calming would be appropriate to help maintain the speeds and improve the safety of the accesses.
Have you had an opportunity to review Exhibit A57, which was planned to present traffic calming on West Pleasant Grove?
Yes.
And do you support the installation of the speed tables that are proposed on that plan?
They would be one appropriate form of traffic calming for the western section of West Pleasant Grove Road, yes.
You have a recommendation for additional traffic calming on the eastern portion of West Pleasant Grove Road?
Combination traffic calming and intersection control, yes. I would recommend that a roundabout be installed at the intersection of the collector road and West Pleasant Grove Road.
Ms. Klein testified, and also in her response letters, she believes that her traffic impact study demonstrates that the Collector Road intersection with West Pleasant Grove satisfies industry standard PennDOT traffic operations criteria and safety with stop control on the Collector Road approach. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that, looking at it strictly from a vehicular perspective. When we start talking about pedestrians and other modes, I would not agree with that conclusion.
Do you think that a stop-controlled intersection at the intersection of the Collector Road and West Pleasant Grove is the safest, most efficient design?
No.
Have you reviewed the full roundabout plan that the applicant presented as Exhibit A55?
Yes, I did.
Do you support the implementation of that full roundabout by the applicant?
I do support the construction of a full roundabout, yes.
Do you know if Toll is able to implement the full roundabout using only the property owned by the Robinsons that they would purchase and the existing right-of-way?
Based on the materials presented, it does appear that they can.
Have you reviewed the mini roundabout plan that applicant presented as Exhibit A56?
Yes.
And do you support the implementation of that plan?
No.
Why not?
Typically, mini roundabouts are used as a retrofit when there is limited right-of-way. They're generally to be avoided in situations where you have high left turns, which in this case you would expect a high left turn volume coming off of Orvis Way onto the Collector Road. Additionally, a full roundabout would be preferable for pedestrians as well.
Do you have a concern about school buses or large trucks navigating a mini roundabout?
Yes, they would put undue wear on the central island and have a disproportionate impact on the operational capacity of a mini roundabout.
Have you reviewed Exhibit A59, which shows the proposed widening of West Pleasant Grove Road?
Yes.
And does the township subdivision ordinance require the widening of West Pleasant Grove Road?
Yes, I believe so.
Have the conditional use plans been revised to show this required widening?
I do not believe that the conditional use plans have been revised.
Have you reviewed Exhibit A75, which is a plan of South New Street conceptual road widening?
Yes.
Do you have any concerns with this plan?
The one item I would note, Mila, well, actually, there is one section on the plan in the vicinity of the bridge where there is a note that I forget the exact language. Actually, Mila, would you mind pulling that exhibit up?
Which one?
A75.
A75.
So if you go sort of into the middle of the sheet, Mila.
Okay.
That note right there, adjustments and widening width may need to be made.
Okay.
That seemed to imply that there would not be compliance with the ordinance at that location.
And what would be your recommendation for what the applicant should do in that location?
Comply with the ordinance or request a waiver.
On page 23 and 24 of the traffic impact study, Ms. Klein lists the traffic improvements that Toll was committed to make for this development. Do you agree that all of those improvements are necessary and should be made by Toll if this development is approved and built?
Yes, with two caveats. I would recommend that the intersection of the Collector Road and West Pleasant Grove Road be constructed with a roundabout. And I do not believe that based on the analysis submitted that a right turn lane, a westbound right turn lane at 926 in New Street addresses the issues that were noted in the review.
And would you suggest that the board impose conditions that requires toll to implement the improvements noted in the TIS as well as the additional ones you've just mentioned?
Yes.
Ms. Klein classified in her testimony the improvements at Street Road and New Street as an off-site traffic improvement. Do you agree with that assessment, that that is an off-site improvement?
I do not, since it is adjacent to the site.
Are you familiar with the conditional use standards in the township zoning ordinance with respect to traffic?
Yes, I am.
And do you believe that the applicant has met their burden to prove that the peak traffic generated by the development will be accommodated in a safe and efficient manner?
Not based on the submitted conditional use plan, no.
Do you believe that they've met that burden with the proposed alternate plan, which has been marked A76?
I believe the alternate plan is an improvement, but not, there has not been sufficient information provided to demonstrate compliance.
And finally, in your professional opinion, has the applicant proven that the proposed development will not result in or substantially add a significant traffic hazard or significant traffic congestion?
Not based on the submitted conditional use plan, no.
I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Camp. It being about 5 minutes of 8, unless Mr. Pomerantz or Mr. Yaw objects, I suggest we take our break. It seems like an opportune time to do so for 7 or 8 minutes and then come back with the cross-examination. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, for me, Scott. Yeah, I agree, Pat. Dick.
All right, we'll go off the record for about 7 or 8 minutes, please.
Mila, I'm gonna log off and log back on and see if that fixes it.
Okay, yeah, let's try that. I will be here.
Thank you.
Kristen? You're muted. Oh, hold on. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
So I have a microphone that I dictate into that my sound comes out of, and that was it. But when I unplugged it, I couldn't. That's where my sound comes from. So let me try something.
Okay.
Unplug this thing again and see if it works.
Yes, this is the first time I've been having issues on my end with Zoom volume. All of a sudden, it just completely disappears.
When I unplug it, it goes away.
Yeah.
But I did, and that's how all my audio comes through this. I think that's what the problem is.
Kristen, can you change your audio settings for your input, your microphone input, and your audio input?
If I knew how to.
So next to your mute button, there's the up arrow.
Uh-huh.
And so you can either select a microphone or select a speaker. And I'm wondering if you adjust, if you have multiple options, if you adjust those.
So, yeah, right now, sorry, it says microphone, speech mic, which is what this is. So I could choose microphone, USB microphone. Or speaker, speech mic. See, I just don't know what.
You can try test speaker and microphone.
Let me try that.
Yeah, Yeah, just pick a different option. Leave the microphone the same and choose a different speaker, or vice versa, and we'll just use deductive reasoning to figure out.
See, when I unplug it, you can't hear me.
Oh, we can hear you. I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
But I can't hear you.
Okay. So then.
You can hear me speaking?
Yes.
Test. I can't hear a word you're saying, though. Huh.
Kristen, it's Dick. Just to give you a heads up, it's at the last 10 minutes of the interview. There was very little interference. So whatever we were doing right or wrong, we should be doing right.
Okay, I was just muting myself, and I'm done asking questions, really, so it shouldn't be a problem. So I'm going to go back to where I was.
Okay. Does that sound okay, Maggie and Amila?
Yes.
I think so.
Well, I can hear you now. You can hear me?
Yes.
And there's no interference?
No.
Then we'll just leave it like
Wait,
this.
Al, can you say a couple words, because it was occurring when you were speaking? So why don't you give us a test?
Testing.
That was so far so good.
That's probably what it was. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes with detached audio or detached speakers like that, they can pick up too much and bounce it back. So I'm wondering if that was the issue.
Okay, but you guys can hear me now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize for that. I'm sorry. I'm not very tech savvy. I will mute myself now, and hopefully if I have to interject, it won't cause the problem.
So we do still have a few people, I think, who have called in, but who also have some video on. So if you are both logged in through Zoom on a video, but you are connecting via audio to your phone, there is an option to merge your phone to your video, which I'm not sure if that's part of the kickback audio that we're experiencing or not.
I think it's working fine right now.
The only person I see who's not muted is Chris Allen.
Yeah, there is no microphone, it's just the video.
It's just the video. But I'm wondering if that person also called in on a phone. If the video isn't muted and the audio is coming from the phone, the computer or the phone, whatever it's connected to, might be picking it up. But Kristen, it may have just been your speaker.
As soon as I figure this all out, COVID will be over and we'll be back in person.
I'm sure it'll still come in handy.
It also depends on internet connection on each user's end, and whether or not your Wi-Fi can handle the signal.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What concerns me is, well, number one, 202 is a travesty at this point. I can't even take it through your township.
You
And-
have,
You can't ask questions right yet. We're still on a break.
just only Zoom related questions.
okay, well, no, it's just my concern is,
You're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to wait.
Nature of the hearing process, things have to happen in a certain order.
okay, and Joanne Kirby here. Sorry, I've called the police. They are on their way over there. They will contact me as soon as they make some contact. I've tried calling Carol's cell phone number. I've tried calling her home number, and neither one of them I've had any success with. So they will call me back. Got it. Okay, Officer Baker just called me back and he said Carol's fine. She just forgot about the meeting.
Is that Joanne?
Yeah, yep. Yes, Patrick, it's me. I suspect she will be logging on any minute.
All right. We're going to hang on and wait for a couple minutes. And Joanne, if you get anything, just send me a text or...
I will do that.
Thanks.
Hey, Pat, can you hear me?
I can.
Who's Carol? I forgot.
Too early in the evening for that, Dick.
Sorry?
Too early in the evening for that.
Yeah, great. At least all is well with her. That's more important.
Eleanor, are you back?
I am here, yes.
Okay, sorry, my screen has now gotten all adjusted so everyone is everywhere, so thank you for letting me know.
Hey,
Greg, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, just hang on for one moment, please.
Sure.
We'll get going.
All right, hey Pat, let's get moving. Carol's already got to review the first part of the transcript.
Okay. All right, Eleanor, if you're ready, Greg, why don't you begin your cross-exam?
Sure, great. Thank you. Good evening, Al.
Good evening.
Al, in your testimony, the beginning of your testimony, you rendered some opinions with respect to the sight distances at the certain intersections in connection with the proposed development, correct?
Yes.
And I believe in your testimony, you stated that the conditional use plan had not been revised, but that subsequent exhibits with respect to the intersections had been provided to you. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you review those exhibits with respect to the revised site distances?
Yes.
And did those exhibits in and of themselves satisfy your comments with respect to the intersections that you cited as having site distance issues?
The exhibit for 926 did show that it was feasible to modify the road profile to provide adequate site distance. The exhibits for the West Pleasant Grove Road intersections were a little more challenging because they show significant grading on the applicant's property and did not clearly indicate how this was related to the code required road widening. If you look at those exhibits, there seem to be some deficiencies in where the new curves were brought into the edge of West Pleasant Grove Road, so it wasn't clear where they were actually measuring from. Additionally, the magnitude of the grading, and depending on the roadway, it was cut or fill. It wasn't clear to me that all of this could be accomplished within the applicant's property without doing additional work on West Pleasant Grove Road.
Isn't it true, though, that if additional grading is required, additional work is required, it would be done on the applicant's property or within the public right-of-way?
It has been stated as such.
Well, I'm asking you, isn't it true? Based upon your review of the materials, the conditional use plans, the additional exhibits that were supplied, isn't there sufficient room to do the additional work if you believe that it's necessary?
I can't offer a firm opinion on the West Pleasant Grove Road accesses.
Well, do you believe that sufficient site distance could be achieved in those locations?
I believe it can be achieved, yes.
Okay. Then, if it's to be achieved, on whose property would the additional work be completed?
The question there is if the magnitude of the grading involves regrading of West Pleasant Grove Road, then there may be additional impacts along the north side of the road, which I, at this point, can't comment on based on the materials submitted.
Okay. So is it your opinion then that in order to achieve satisfactory site distance, West Pleasant Grove Road in its entirety would have to be reprofiled?
That's not what I said.
I'm just asking. It's not your testimony that you do not have to reprofile all of West Pleasant Grove Road to achieve the required site distance?
I am not saying no. I do not believe you would need to reprofile all of West Pleasant Grove Road.
Would you have to regrade or reprofile certain sections of West Pleasant Grove Road near the accesses along West Pleasant Grove Road?
I think that is still possible, but based on the information that's provided, I can't give a firm opinion one way or the other.
Okay. Did you review and comment on the additional exhibits that were submitted by the applicant with respect to what was proposed?
I reviewed them. I don't recall if a comment letter was issued.
Okay, so to date you do not know whether the applicant is aware of what objections you may have to the proposed improvements and grading that the applicant believes are necessary to provide the site distance.
I believe we discussed this as part of the Planning Commission hearings.
Okay, but there's nothing written at this point for the applicant to respond to?
I don't recall.
Okay. Moving on to the road profiles. You're familiar with the conditional use criteria under section 2009 of the zoning ordinance, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it true that under section 2009 B3A, detailed profiles are not required as part of the conditional use application?
I would agree with you. I think the question that comes of this, though, is because of the nature of what's being done, significant changes in the road grading may impact other elements of the site that, whether it's environmental or otherwise, that might be of interest to the board as they consider this.
Right. Well, and in fact, isn't it true that section 2009 B3D states that road profiles are only required to determine compliance with township natural features, site design and conservation design, site analysis and conservation design process.
Don't have it in front of me.
Okay. So, in your testimony, you issued comments with respect to the internal road profiles of the proposed development, correct?
Yes.
And specifically, you were looking at exhibits A74A through A74F, as in Frank, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you previously issue written comments on the internal road profile design submitted by the applicant?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And how long have you had these road profile designs? For over 4 years?
I don't believe so. I believe that profiles were included when A67 was provided, but then they were resubmitted as the A74 series. That's the first time some of the detailed reviews took place when they were reintroduced in exhibits.
Mr. Federico, isn't it true that you participated in the first conditional use application for this proposed conditional use?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And isn't it true that road profiles were submitted as part of that application?
I do not recall.
And did you review the initial submission for the second conditional use application? I believe you said you had reviewed that plan.
Yes.
Did you also see that the road profiles were submitted with that conditional use application submission?
The first time that I believe they were introduced was part of the exhibit A67. If they were included in the whole plan set, as you indicated, they're typically not an issue for conditional use.
That's right.
So they became more of an issue for when they were entered into the record as the A74 series.
So, Mr. Federico, the A74 series were revisions of the prior submissions. Did you know that?
Which prior submissions?
As part of the original plan application submission, the revised road profiles were testified as being revised from an original submission. Did you know that?
I don't recall that.
Okay. But it is true that your comments that you gave this evening are the first time you've given comments publicly or to Toll Brothers with respect to your analysis of the internal road profiles. Isn't that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So, as we looked at some of those road profile designs, you were commenting on sharp vertical curves and sharp horizontal curves and things being undesirable in road layouts. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Aren't those typically land development details that you would ordinarily see as part of a preliminary and/or final engineered plan?
Yes, they are.
Because we're really getting into some fine details when you're talking about road profiles. Isn't that correct?
Often that is correct.
You testified with respect to roads, I believe it's N and L, as should be connected, I believe. If you could give me your testimony again on what you were opining with respect to roads N and L on the site plan.
If you'll give me a moment to go back to some of the review letters, there is, over the course of this proceeding, there's been some confusion because
of the numbers of the road lettering, yeah.
The road lettering changed between the original plan and the alternate. So
that's what I wanted to clarify.
If we are, hang on, give me a moment, I'm going to pull up my own
go ahead.
PDF.
Absolutely.
So if we were looking at A47, it would be road L and N.
Right.
Nancy.
Right, so it's the two cul-de-sacs, is that correct? Okay. And isn't it true that if Toll were to connect those two roads, they would have to go through some environmentally sensitive areas?
I do believe there are environmental features between those two roads, yes.
And looking at 47, Exhibit 47, A47, it looks like there's a riparian corridor, woodlands, maybe some steep slopes as well, isn't that correct?
That does appear to be the case.
All right, so isn't it true that your opinion does not take into account the environmental encroachments and that you were just looking at it from a true traffic engineer standpoint?
In this case, yes, I was looking at it from a connectivity standpoint.
Okay. If we stay with A47 and we look at the collector road next to the church, you had some testimony, I believe, with respect to providing a connection from the church to the connector road. Did you specify where that connection should occur?
I believe to date I have phrased it that it should be at a location mutually agreed upon between the church and Toll Brothers.
Okay. And isn't it true that Toll, of course, has no ability to tell the church to close its exit-only driveway?
That would be true.
Okay. With respect to some of the comments you rendered or testimony you rendered on the 926 and New Street intersection, and I think we've talked about this in the first conditional use application, but I'll ask again. That is a PennDOT controlled intersection, isn't that correct?
That is the intersection of two state roadways, yes.
So at 926 and South New Street, that's PennDOT controlled.
Or I'm sorry, that is not.
Two, just one.
Just
correct?
one, yes.
Right. At that intersection, does PennDOT determine what improvements should be installed?
PennDOT and the township, yes, because it is the township owned and maintained traffic signal. So the township is also responsible for the control and operation of that signal intersection.
Is that a PennDOT permitted signal?
It is PennDOT permitted, yes.
So isn't it true that PennDOT controls the design of that traffic signal?
PennDOT has review and approval authority.
And with respect to what Toll is proposing at that intersection, isn't it true that Toll is proposing